I read about pre-match meals that they all eat now, and I always remember Cole's pre-match meal. It was a fillet steak on its own at 12 o'clock, and then a bowl of rice pudding with a dollop of strawberry marmalade on the top. And I thought, how can you eat that and start running about after it? But he did. And then we found out off the scientist, sports scientist, it wouldn't get digested till about 5:30. And he was still running about with this in his stomach. But yeah, going back to what you said, Ian, about him, you know, he was, I've become very close to him, you know, especially when he was, I can remember the night he got injured, you know, I was sat on the bench and Freddie Griffiths was the physio then, and it was an horrendous tackle, no getting away from it. Nobody made a big fuss at our lads. And it seemed during the game that when we carried him off, it was though the energy had just been taken away from United, because I think they realised that something drastic had happened at that night with Colin getting injured. And when I came onto the pitch with Fred, his leg was huge. I always remember that. The back of his leg was huge. And I couldn't get my head around it. Anyway, we carried him off, and he immediately went to hospital. And I got very close to the consultant that looked after Col in his early stages. Lovely chap. He's no longer with us. And the first thing he had to do was drain just over 3 pints of blood out of the back of his leg, you know. And he said, this is not going to be a quick job, this injury that Colin's got, because blood is very, very irritable in and around the joint. And I've heard Colin in many of his interviews say his knee was like a rusty joint because of the blood congealing around the joint. He could never get full flexion in his knee, even though we put him under anaesthetic 3 or 4 times and bent his leg fully. When he come out of the anaesthetic, he just couldn't do it. No matter what we did, we went through, you know, the early days of his rehabilitation. I used to drive and pick him up about 8:15 in the morning at where he used to live in Hale, and then pick him up after his breakfast. Sometimes help him to get ready because he was in a bad way. He couldn't put any socks on, so I put socks on for him and help Marie get him ready. And he'd get in the car and we'd take him to the ground and we'd do the early rehabilitation with quadriceps and things like that. And then in the afternoon, I'd take him home. And then gradually we built it up where we were working 3 times a day, where I'd pick him up in the morning, bring him into the ground. We'd do the morning session of rehabilitation and treatment. And then in the afternoon, we specialise in doing some flexion work. And gradually it built up where we was pounding the roads of Moss Side late at night with Fred. And I've got to say, it's the fittest I've ever been in my life because I could never keep up with him. Freddie was always dragging behind me and I was saying, come on, we got, and Cole was just flying along all the time. And what was amazed of it was he never got a sweat on. Never. His shirt was never wet. We was absolutely soaked through with sweat when we got back to the ground. And we did everything, I think. When I look back, I'm thinking, could we have done anything else? You know, we worked at his flexion, worked his extension, and we could never get that last little bit. Even like, we'd have people coming in because Fred knew a lot of celebrities. And because the club was quite relaxed in that way, they were allowed sometimes for us to treat them. And I always remember a guy called Jonah Barrington, who was the #1 in the world at squash. He had a bit of an ankle injury and Fred says, would I look after him in the afternoon? I said, yeah. I said, at the end of the day, we got this kid right and he played in the squash competition and won it. And he came back to just to say thank you. And he says, is there anything that we can do? And me and Fred had spoken about it. And he said, why don't we get him on the court with Jonah and just see if he's any good at squash? And, you know, and I'm going back to what people say about him. He could do everything. I wasn't surprised that Jonah Barrington got on the tee and he was telling him just how to play in the next 15 minutes. He was playing balls like you'd never think he'd been on the squash court. He was just unbelievable. And it was the same with tennis. It was the same with golf. It was the same with when we was on pre-season. If we was going out and then we had a free night, we'd go out and have a couple of drinks. We'd have a game of darts. He'd be hitting triple 20 and double 20 and just thinking nothing of it. And we were thinking, is this bloke, is there anything he can't do?